Live. You're live. All right, let's do this. Hello, hello. How's it going? Happy Wednesday. It's just me by myself. Hello, welcome. Hello. All right. Welcome to After Hours. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Thank you for joining. Today's beverage of the day, I'm going to tilt myself down a little more, is an Adirondack Lager from Saranac Brewery. This is from Utica, New York, where I am from. It's delicious. You should check them out. Anyway, all right. So, had a lot of good questions, so I'm just going to dive into the questions today. I will say that we are working on a series of content that is focused on houseplant pests. So those videos will be coming out on our YouTube as well as on Reels over the course of the next couple weeks. We have already discussed pests a lot in the lives, so I don't really feel like I need to talk at you for 15 minutes about pests. As always, if you have any specific questions, feel free to drop it in the chat and we can kind of go from there. But as far as like a general overview, all of that is coming. Already up on the YouTube is the general overview of houseplant pests and like why you get them and just what kind of products to have on hand all the time, just in case you get an infestation, which again is not really an if, it's more of a when. So we cover that. And then in the subsequent weeks, what I'm talking about is I'm kind of just breaking down each common pest and specific tips on how to combat them. So this Friday will be fungus gnats, which is highly anticipated, especially this time of year, especially in DC in the summer. So keep an eye out for that. Again, if anybody has any specific questions about a pest, feel free to just pop it in the chat. Otherwise, I'm just going to go ahead and start answering questions that were submitted. Thank you for submitting your questions today. So the first question that I am going to answer, let's see. Real quick. So I have a question in the chat that says, is there a page you upload to give more info on what you talk about in your live posts? Yes, absolutely. So most of what I talk about in my lives, I have either already made a video on, which typically we have a YouTube video, which is linked to a blog post on our website, which is Rewild Homeschool. So there's a bunch of blogs on there. Any video that we've already made is going to be linked at the top of that blog post. So you can either read about it or you can watch the video. And then on our IG, we have that video. Obviously, we can't post a full-length YouTube video with all of the details. And I talk a lot, which is, why I'm here. On our IG, so we typically have like a much shortened teaser video on our IGTV, and or Reels if it's able to be like condensed that much. So if you see it on our IG, chances are there is a blog and a YouTube video already that you can reference. That said, if there is a topic that we discuss in a live that does not have a blog or a YouTube yet, it's coming. So that's what we're cooking up at the moment. So that's why we went ahead and just did a whole big pest video shoot, and we broke it all down. So those will all be coming out in subsequent weeks. They will all have YouTube videos, but it all relays back to the same blog post. All that info is in one big blog post if you prefer to consume your content that way. Good question. Okay, moving on. So one of the questions that stuck out that I will just rapid fire off was about a philodendron saloon. There's yellowing leaves. So I typically find with a philodendron saloon, so, similar to other philodendrons, medium, light, pretty easy as far as like light and watering. The Monstera is going to be the most popular. I understand that like that's in its own little like family now, as is Philodendron saloon isn't really a philodendron anymore. Not going to cover that right now. Reclassification of species. So with the saloons, I find that they're a little different and a little more sensitive than something like a Monstera that you might have already, or even like a Swiss cheese plant, the Adenoces, in that I think they need a little bit more light and a little bit less water. A lot of philodendrons do have pretty, I wouldn't say tuberous, but just like very thick roots that are quite juicy, that are their terrestrial roots. So I just find that with a lot of philodendrons, if you are struggling, they need more light and they need you to stop drowning them. They're a lot more resilient than people give them credit for. And a lot of the times with saloons, I feel like they're super susceptible to overwatering. And just watering it less is not going to resolve the problem. I would really recommend giving it a lot of light, and then finding your balance with the watering from there. I mean, once acclimated, you can find philodendron saloon like outside a patio, at a restaurant or in front of a hotel that's just planted outside. If you go to the zoo this time of year, they're all out front of the zoo. Obviously we've talked about it in lives, and we have a YouTube video on it about acclimating your plants. An indoor house plant is grown in a greenhouse, so it's a tender plant. So if you want to put it outside, there's a whole process to that. Check out the video. So you can't just like put it outside and it's going to be okay. You might experience burning, etc. However, if it is acclimated properly, full sun, love it. Let's do it. So if you think about that in your house, if you have it in a dark corner, it's probably suffering and you're probably overwatering it, right? Not because of the volume of water that you're giving it, but just because it's not getting enough energy from the sun in the spot that it's in. So you need to give it access to more light so it can photosynthesize faster and keep up with that water. But with most philodendrons, like, you really can let them dry out a lot more than you think. So a little bit more light, a little bit less water, find a balance there, go for it. I hope that helps. And then let's see. Another question. Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting about this question function that I love so dearly. So I'm just going to pop this in here. So this is the question I just answered. Okay. And then this is the next question I'm going to answer. Okay. My bird of paradise keeps curling inward. It's been watered and it is away from vents. So you're covering your bases. Love to see it. So just for everyone who does not know, yep. So your bird of paradise should have nice big flat leaves that are together. If you put the bird of paradise outside, or if it's a wild bird of paradise, what you'll notice is there's the central vein, and then there's all the little ribs that come out from the central vein. Those ribs actually serve the function of ripping. so that when the plant is outside, when they get really big and they have these big, almost sail-like leaves, if it's really windy and you have a big sail like that in the sky, really high up, far away from the base, the wind could actually rip the plant out of the ground. So what these little ribs do is they split in the wind and allow the wind to pass through it a lot easier so that the plant doesn't get ripped out of the ground. So they don't rip in your house because there's no wind in your house. But this is most of the reason why I don't advise that people put their birds of paradise outside for the summer, because it's probably going to get all ripped up and you're probably not going to like that. Anyway, back to the question. So if once the plant is inside, if it's really thirsty, it will curl in. And then a lot of times people are like, well, it's in a really nice, bright, direct sun spot and I'm watering it consistently. I don't understand why it's curling. 9 times out of 10, it is an AC vent or a heating vent. Birds really do not like AC. So if it is a way, and the way to tell this is if the bird moves in the wind, it's too close to a vent. It's feeling that cold air. The temperature discrepancy is too much for it, or even just the amount of airflow is too much for it, and it's causing it to transpire too quickly. It's drying out. The leaves are drying out even if the soil is wet. So if your bird has been watered thoroughly and it's away from a vent, it might just be really cold in your house. Maybe you keep your house very chilly. So if you do keep your house really chilly, even if it's not close to a vent, it could be too cold. Alternatively, it could be, and all of these things also kind of feed into one another. So it could be multiple compounding factors. That's something to always keep in mind. This is why when you are starting to have an issue with your plant, you should only try to resolve one aspect of that issue at a time versus like trying 8 different things at once or in quick succession, because then you won't know what actually caused the problem. Excuse me. And you might make more for yourself. So try one thing at a time, which is what this person did, which is great. Systematic. We love it. If it's not super cold, it could just be super dry. So any place that has like forced air or like a central heating and cooling is probably going to be a lot more dry on average than, people who have window units and whatever, really just for the sole fact that you're not like sealed into the space. There's going to be a lot more opportunities for air exchange. If you have a window unit, your window's basically open. So whatever the humidity is outside is going to be the humidity inside. All you're really changing is the temperature. Super inefficiently at that. So I would say it's probably the humidity or the temperature. So try to up the humidity if you can. You can just like run a humidifier near it or group a lot of your other plants, tropical plants near it, and see if that helps. As always, if you've like tried everything and you're completely stumped, it's always best to send us a picture. So you can DM us, email us, call us, whatever you want to do. Bring it into the shop, whatever is convenient for you. If you've kind of exhausted your search and the resources that we provide online, seeing the plant firsthand really helps. So I hope that helps. But if it didn't, just come in and let us know. Okay. So this is a great question that was just submitted. Okay, so how can you tell when bugs aren't bad? I have some little beige mites in the soil, no webbing, no visible damage. What should I monitor to see if they are going after the roots? So I'm loving the, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm loving the like non-alarmist view to bugs, because bugs, just like plants, they exist. And especially bugs and plants are going to coexist, because that is how it is so in nature. And, just because we're inside an apartment or a home does not mean that we are magically severed from that. Most of the time, we just can't see it and perceive it immediately. And we have lots of ways to kind of remain in our little bubble. But they're there. Trust me. So a lot of things are pretty benign. Honestly, even if you get something like spider mites or mealybug, as long as you are maintaining it and you have control over the situation and it's not spreading rapidly or all over the totality of the plant, or is not producing visible damage, it's fine. It's benign. Those things are very easy to treat and get rid of and kind of control. Other things like scale is also not benign, but it's something that like you're never really gonna get rid of it entirely, at least not for a long amount of time. It's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of time and consistency to completely eradicate it. But a lot of the times you're kind of just maintaining it. So that's like a good mentality to have. Something like thrips, though, or aphids, like that's actually just going to eat your plant in like 2 days. It's going to be very rapid. So that's a separate thing, which we'll have a video soon. But as far as like fungus gnats go, or like little teeny tiny mites, or even centipedes, which are huge, and silverfish, those things like look really creepy crawly and like are like gross. But like they're literally just living in the soil. They're not doing anything wrong necessarily. Completely understandable if you don't want that in your house, living in your plants, but not really anything you have to worry about. And honestly, 9 times out of 10, the only reason they're there is because the soil is staying consistently moist. So you're kind of like creating this little micro environment for them that they really like, because it's nice and warm and wet. So completely changing the temperature, like sometimes when I notice something's crawling around in my plant, I just put it outside on a completely covered porch for like 2 days, which isn't going to drastically affect the plant, but it's going to make it not a nice place to hang out for some random bug. It's going to also allow the plant to dry out. 9 times out of 10, something benign, let the plant dry out. It's going to resolve the problem, because that's why they're hanging out. So try that. I would definitely also invest in a magnifying glass. You're going to need it when you're 40 anyways. So just buy it now and use it on your plants. And that's really going to allow you to not only like really get in close and make sure in the nooks and crannies that nothing's hanging out, but it's going to help you be able to identify bugs a lot better and the differences between them and what they're actually doing to your plant on a micro level. Once you get really good at identifying the pests that are like bad and like need to be eradicated immediately, you will be able to catch them sooner. Like I can spot a mealybug on a plant not a mile away, but you get it. I can just tell. I can see it. It becomes a very like innate thing. So getting up close and personal and really making it a good habit, it's going to help you out long term. But a lot of the things, especially if you just bought a plant, it's like what it was chilling with like produce from the grocery store. There's probably some like weird little bugs, that's on there from the lettuce and fungus gnats from the fruit or the fresh cut flowers. It's mingling with all that other stuff. And then again, if it was at like a greenhouse, might have slugs on it, might have silverfish, might have millipedes, but they're just from outdoors. So if it's within the first like month or so of buying a plant, making sure you're giving it the proper amount of light, not overwatering it, is going to help it. This is also why repotting a plant immediately can also help you move past a lot of the little friends that are hanging out in the soil because you're just refreshing the soil. You're getting rid of whatever it was in, and changing it to something completely clean and new. But again, we're going to have a whole series breaking down all of the most common houseplant pests. So I would just not be concerned unless you're starting to see something, again, like you said, like webbing, but make sure it's not a regular spider. Regular spider is not going to do anything. Honestly, I try to like calm myself down and leave spiders on my plants because they're going to eat all the other guys. So spiders are friends. If you're seeing like weird mottling on the leaves, so not like consistent yellowing or consistent browning, which is generally dryness either in the air or in the soil, random pockets of spots. That can either be root damage or it's a pest. So that's how you know. The plant will just start to look sickly, discolored. Typically, people will call and be like, it looks like it's both underwatered and overwatered at the same time. The plant isn't drying out as quickly as it should be. Like it's kind of all over the place. Yeah. Those would be things where you're like, something's going on here that's not normal and needs to be addressed. That was long-winded. Sorry. Hope it was helpful. All right, let's take a hard left and talk about fertilizer. When using liquid diluted (parentheses) fertilizer, do you first water normally and then add fertilizer? So some people do. However, I think that it's a lot easier, especially if you're using, it's just easier to use liquid fertilizer. It's so easy because you just put it in the water that you're going to water the plant with. You can water the plant and then feed it. That's fine. Make sure you are diluting it properly, like you mentioned. But why? Like skip a step. And what this also does is, yes, it's going to further dilute the fertilizer, but you're definitely not going to burn the roots. You're definitely not going to overfeed. And you can always give the plant more. You can't take it away. And the only other thing that I would say is like an issue that you could run into is if you're just like taking your little cap full of liquid fertilizer and dumping it in after you water the plant. Yes, the soil is moist, so it will, go down through the soil, but it's still going to be pretty localized. Whereas when it's already diluted into the water that you water the plant with, it's getting very evenly distributed. You can really burn the roots if you just dump it in one spot. And a lot of the plant is just not going to take it up. So I just really feel like it's very foolproof and less difficult. You just don't have to think about it if you just put it in the water. And if you don't feel like you are getting enough growth, you can just up the solution in the water that you're watering your plants with. The great thing about using a liquid fertilizer like the Fox Farm one that we sell is that it's organic. So all of the soluble vitamins and minerals that's in it that the plant wants, all of the food is all really low. So like it's already a liquid, it's already super low. So you can like really crank it up if you want, especially during the summer. You can't really mess it up. I hope that helps. I'm always a fan of what is the easiest solution with the least amount of steps, which really kind of comes out of necessity once you have a ton of plants. All right, cool. We've got like 5 minutes. And I got one more question left. And it is about grow lights. I get this question a lot, so I'm very motivated to learn more. and experiment. I've done some experiments by myself, like at my house, but not a ton. So I'm going to continue to experiment. However, what I can say is that I know that I am probably making grow lights like way more complicated than they have to be. Also, there are tons and tons more grow lights on the market than when I first started getting into plants. There's grow lights that are hyper specific to a certain type of growth or a certain type of plant. There's pretty grow lights that are just decorative and functional and beautiful. There's different spectrums, like it's not just the purple lights anymore, or those like crazy fluorescent, super bright ones. There's like normal, soft, warm light spectrum grow lights. So there's a ton of options, which is both better and very overwhelming. On a lot of grow lights, there is like a chart on the box that will tell you like this is how much output that this bulb gets, and it will tell you what spectrum and all that information. So you kind of just want to match up, like if I have a cactus needs 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight minimum a day to achieve X amount of growth. So then you can kind of figure out, okay, what is like the wattage? Clearly, I'm not an expert. That is going to equal what it will get in the wild and be optimal and produce the most amount of growth for me. There's a difference between like optimal growth from a grow light and just like maintenance growth. Like I just want to give it what it needs. That's going to be the most like sunlight in my hemisphere. Or you could do a lot of research and you could optimize it and it's the Sahara above your cactus. So it depends on the type of plant, what the wattage is and what the output is for that plant, what the spectrum of light is, how many hours you have it on and off, how far away the grow light is from the plant physically. There's a lot of things to consider. So I would say just go for something very simple and as low of wattage as possible, and then go from there. Don't get something that's like huge and involved and really expensive, and just kind of get comfortable with it and for what you need. There are a lot better resources than me on the internet out there that can help you. I am still learning and experimenting. What I can say also is that in our new Ballston space in Virginia, coming soon, most of that space is actually going to be fitted with grow lights. And they are really, really beautiful. They're a warm, natural daylight color. And I have already experimented with those in our store, and the plants respond really well to them. They're massive, so I don't think you would have any kind of function or want for them in a home setting, because they're like this big and very bright and powerful. They're definitely meant for like a large open space. But even in experimenting with that, I have learned a lot. So hopefully I will know a little bit more in the next few months, and we'll be able to, make something coherent for you guys here on live. I'll be able to answer the questions, or write a blog or make a YouTube video. So coming soon. But in the meantime, get out there, do your own research. And honestly, let me know. Let me know what you find out. I am always looking to learn. So that's our time for this week. I have answered all the questions that were submitted. But again, please, every single Wednesday, we're here at 6 p.m. I usually talk too much to drink my beverage, but that's okay. Grab a beverage of choice and join me. Submit your questions in our stories every single week. It's normally put out on Tuesday, unless I forget, and then it's put out on Wednesday. But just keep an eye on the stories for the question box. You can submit them there every single week, and then we'll jump on here and on YouTube. We're live on YouTube also, if that's more convenient for you. So you can either access our lives here on IGTV, or you can access them on YouTube when you're looking up all of our other YouTube videos. All right. Well, have a great rest of your week, everyone, and I will see you next week. Bye. Bye. I have to say goodbye to YouTube as well.